Right away, Lisa nodded, dragging the metal stool behind the CNI unit, allowing her to reach the control panel. The status screen had been revealed. The upper rotations of the arms were slightly out of alignment, so Lisa adjusted them by using the two small joysticks at the bottom of the control panel. A small built-in laser pointer then located just below the injection needle fastener, and on the front of the injection papyrus acted like the guide to allow Lisa to line up the arms perfectly straight. Once the red laser was pointed right on Lincoln's brain through the opening in his skull, Lisa locked the rotation arms in place and signaled for Dr. Lloyd. Now open the rectangular shop slot and then slide the machine just below the injection hose connected to the interface with the upper rotation arms, Lisa instructed. That's where you insert the nanite canisters. You'll find one small compartment behind the main sensor array on the top. Dr. Lloyd looked up and saw a small door located at the back of the small centrifugal pillar just below the cone-shaped sensor array above. He pulled it open and found out what it looked like: a soda can that had been built bulletproof glass, which had two bronze-colored metal scraps on the top and bottom, which had small sensors connected at the ends. I presume this is it? Dr. Lloyd asked as he pointed at the canister at the bottom of the device. Affirmative, Lisa nodded. However, the nanites may need to be replicated and programmed. The device canister is not the replicator, but it cannot operate while the door is open, so I need to advise you to close the door. Dr. Lloyd nodded and shut the door, and then Lisa tapped on the control panel, answering the commands for the replicator. The machine was soft and whirling sound. Replicator powered up, so the main sensor arrays will be blue light flashing and showing the machine's replicator there begin to creating the magnet's programming into them. They lasted about 30 seconds before the noise stopped, and the main sensor array stopped flashing blue and briefly flashed green, indicating that the replication process was complete. The replication is complete. All you have to do now is remove the canister from the replica and place it inside the nanites canister unit. Then the injection needle will be screwed onto place, and then the injection of the papyrus, Lisa instructed. Got it, Lloyd said, gently removing the nanite canister, which was now filled with what looks like to be a black sand. What is this stuff? Looks like sand, Lana pointed out as the black sandy substance in the side of the canister. It's not sand, Lloyd corrected. Those are the nanites. They're just so small, and that's why they look like beads of sand. That makes sense. That'd have to be small enough to enter the bloodstream, Luna said. Dr. Lloyd opened the nanite canister unit and the door inside, with the canister inside, with all of them which locked into like two screw fasteners that had been connected to the nanite canister into the injection hose leading to the injection of papyrus. Once connected, Lloyd closed the small little door and signaled for the surgeons to bring over the attachment injection needle, which was sitting right on the other of the nearby surgical tray. One of the surgeons handed the 12-inch injection needle to Dr. Lloyd, who then screwed it into place and gently removed the cap, recovering the large needle. All right, Lisa, we're ready for the injection procedure, Lloyd informed Lisa. Good, Lisa replied, tapping on the control panel. Proceeding the injection. Lisa then double-checked the position of the needle and injection of the papyrus, which was using the laser guide pointer just to make sure it's absolutely sure that the needle was lined up correctly. With the opening of Lincoln's skull, she then tapped in and held down the extended down of the control panel. Everyone in the observatory watched as the CNI unit began slowly extending itself forward. Swirling softly as it did, the needle soon made contact with Lincoln's brain and then entered slowly. Once the needle was far enough inside, Lisa let go of the button and then locked the unit into place. Alright, this means at the moment we've all been waiting, Lisa announced. Once I inject the nanites into Lincoln's brain, the ultrasound unit should be monitor the activity to see Lincoln's brain. This will let us see if the nanites are working properly. She then tapped the large red button on the left, and the control panel machine once began swirling and buzzing as the nanites were slowly injected into Lincoln's brain. The main sensor array was then changed from a blue to green a few seconds, indicating that the injection process was complete. Then it turned to yellow, indicating that it was now in scanning mode. If the CNI unit was detecting anything unusual or threatening the patient, it would alert the user right away with a warning alarm built onto the control panel. The nanites are in, Lisa informed Dr. Lloyd and the surgeons. Now we can begin the ultrasound, so we'll be able to see the nanites action for their free. Lisa rechecked the CNI unit back in place as Lloyd fetched the ultrasound machine nearby, wheeled it over to where Lincoln lay, and once it was in place, Lloyd then spread some magical electrical or special algae gel on Lincoln's brain head and then placed a small incinerator on the spot where the gel was. Then highly quality image of Lincoln's brain appeared on the ultrasound screen. Unlike the old fuzzy black and white medical image that most ultrasound machines display, this one displayed a colorful image of inside of Lincoln's brain. The brain was a gray color, and dozens of red scratchy images on the various areas of Lincoln's brain were where Lisa assumed they were the damaged areas. These red scratches and blotches you're seeing are the areas of Lincoln's brain that got damaged from the accident, Dr. Lloyd pointed out. He moved the transducer further down to Lincoln's head, where there was a small red blotch image seen just past Lincoln's brain, and this tiny red blotch is the brain hemorrhage, and the nanites should appear as tiny black specks. Lisa then gazed down on the screen while standing near the controls of the CNI unit and noticed that millions and millions of tiny black specks that looked like ants swirling around inside Lincoln's brain. Some of them spit out into different directions while some of them moved towards the brain hemorrhage. Once the specks surrounded the hemorrhage, Lisa then checked the status on the screen of the CNI unit that displayed the level of brain damage various areas, but the brain that was damaged was displaying the size of the hemorrhage and the levels of the regeneration right at the moment. The brain level of damage was at 87%, but Lisa expected them to change them over time as the nanites did their work. The nanites continued swirling around the hemorrhage, and yet they'd been taking their time to heal it. As for the areas of Lincoln's brain, the CNI unit stats readout showed a 4% increase on the regeneration at the frontal lobe of Lincoln's brain, as well as 2% increase of regeneration of the Burka area of the brain. Looks like the nanites are working so far, Lisa reported. There are 2% increase of regeneration of the Burka's area and a 4% increase of the frontal lobe. They should increase over time. They definitely are slow, Dr. Lloyd said, noticing the black specks moving all over inside Lincoln's brain. The brain is a very delicate thing, so the nanites are programmed to work slowly to ensure a safe regeneration procedure, Lisa explained, while keeping her gaze fixed on the status of the CNI unit. The regeneration levels increased slowly every 20 seconds. The frontal lobe was now at 6, and the Broca's area was now at 9, and the hemorrhage was surprisingly still at 1. A few various other areas of the brain were quickly healed, but the areas that had been received the highest levels of damage took a lot longer to generate. The brain hemorrhage was the main issue, however, making it much longer to heal and regenerate than Lisa had predicted, too long in fact. Odd, the machine is only showing a 1% increase of the generation of the brain hemorrhage area, yet the nanites are still shown to be operating at full capacity, Lisa said with a hint of worry in her voice. The castrates, Clyde, and the rest of Lisa's family heard everything Lisa said, and they were starting to become very worried as well. Was something preventing the nanites from healing the brain hemorrhage in Lincoln's brain? Or was it possible that some other problem had arisen that Lincoln was not, or Lisa was not aware of? You don't think that? I think it's something to do with the nanites programming, do you? Dr. Lloyd asked. I don't think so, Lisa said. My veritable simulations showed a successful regeneration in the hemorrhage area, so why is it taking so long? I can't be fully sure. At that moment, something else unexpectedly suddenly occurred. The main sensor array was then changed from yellow to solid red. Warning system alarm began sounding from the patient control panel. Warning, nanite navigation scanners unstable. Stabilize it immediately. A medical voicemail blurred out from the control panel. Panic instantly overtook Lisa and Dr. Lloyd and the surgeons and those watching the observatory. The ultrasound was on screen, and the nanites could be seen swirling around frantically, and they were just veering off from the brain damage of Lincoln's brain. And to make matters even worse, Lisa saw the brain damage level indicator starting to increase in a rapid pace. Warning, brain damage at level 89 and rising. The CNI unit's machine voice warned. Oh no, 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 no! Lisa panicked so desperately, trying to find the problem. This can't be happening. Lisa, what's going on? Dr. Lloyd demanded a panicked voice. The nanites' navigational scanners weren't fully established during the replication process. They were allowed the nanites to investigate through the brain and not veer off course. How could this I have forgotten that? Lisa cursed frantically, tapping on the control panel to attempt to stabilize the nanites. Why is the brain damage increasing? Dr. Lloyd frantically asked. If the nanites don't know what they're doing, they'll end up trying to regenerate areas of the brain that don't need it, and that could cause extreme damage to whatever they're in it. Lisa replied, still trying to fix the problem. Warning, brain damage at level 91 and rising, the CNI unit warned. No, this shouldn't be happening. Lisa panicked, and a warning alarm continued going off the CNI unit. What's going on? What's happening to Lincoln? Lana demanded fearfully. I don't know, Lana. Rita replied, fearing for Lincoln's life as Lisa worked like crazy to fix the problem. Come on, come on! Lisa muttered frantically as working as a established the nanites but of course the process was taking a lot longer than she intended. Warning, brain damage level at 93 and rising. The CNI unit warned yet again. Damn it, then the nanites are sort of control. It's hard to establish their guidance systems, Lisa cursed. Can they be stabilized? Lincoln's brain isn't looking good, Dr. Lloyd pointed out the ultrasound screen. Lisa gleefully glanced at it, and she felt her heart skip a beat at the horror she saw. The nanites had spread all over the areas of Lincoln's brain, and what was much worse, several more red streaks began appearing in some areas of the nanites the clusters had due. I'm trying, believe me. Trying to establish the navigational systems of every nanite is a very difficult thing to do, Lisa said, keeping her focus on the CNI unit. The alarm continued to sounding as Lisa was so desperate to try to stabilize the nanites, finding herself beginning to succumb in fear. This was a very scenario that Lisa had been fearing all this time, and was now terrified that Lincoln could possibly die because of this one error she failed to overlook. Sweat ran down Lisa's forehead. She managed to stabilize a few nanite clusters, but there were far too many of them and left were unstable. Warning, brain damage level at 95, 96, 97, 98. Danger, brain damage reaching critical zone. The CNI unit warned as the main sensor array began flashing red frantically. Lincoln's body began to spasm a bit as his brain reached critical levels of damage, and the heart monitor began beeping rapidly. Lisa knew at this point that Lincoln was a goner if she soon didn't stabilize the whole nanites right away. Danger, brain damage level critical 99. Damage detected. Danger, danger, danger. The CNI unit blared again. At this point, Clyde and Castace and the Labs were all panicking. Rita and Lynn Sr. held on to each other, fearing for Lincoln's life, and Lucy began showing levels of fear that she would never do before. Lisa! Dr. Lloyd frantically gestured at the ultrasound screen. There were more red blotches inside of Lincoln's brain and Lisa knew at this point she had to do something right away. Lisa then put all of her mind to work and tried thinking of anything, but sadly she didn't know what to do. Lisa only managed to reestablish 30% of the nanites, and the brain damage was still increasing, and this was dangerously high rate. What do I do? What do I do? Lisa's mind screamed as she tried to think of a situation, anything to try to stop the tragedy that was about to unfold. Although she did look back at the test simulations of the CNI unit to try to remember the scenarios, it was familiar of the unfolding right there. Yet Lisa couldn't recall any of the simulations going like this. All of them had gone successful, and they have proven that the CNI unit wouldn't fail. But in this current solution has proved otherwise. Lisa had felt tears running down, both of frustration and despair, and the helplessness of rush through her body as she was trying to think of a way, the solution to correct this horrible error. I've come so far to reach this very moment, and why is this happening? Where did I go wrong? Lisa thought. Danger, total brain activity failure impediment, the CNI unit announced. At this point, Lisa lost hope. There was no way that she could stop this intense tragedy from occurring, not when Lincoln's brain was now at 99 damage. Lisa tilted her head forward and then did something that she never did come up at this point. She had never truly believed in God or anything spiritual, but something inside Lisa snapped as she began praying. God, please help me. Tell me, what do I have to do to save my brother? I've come this far and he's trying to take him away from me. Please help me. Everyone's counting on me to save him, Lisa prayed in her mind as everything around her began to grow hazy, and Dr. Lloyd's voice seemed to fade away. Nothing seemed so to matter Lisa anymore, not when she had finally accepted the fact that the invention had failed. Lincoln was just as good as gone at this point, and what was all left was Lisa inside with sorrow. Why? Why are you taking him from my brother away from me? God, why? Me and my family have worked so hard at our hardest to try to save him, and you want to take him away from me? Tell me, why? Lisa demanded loudly in her mind. Then something odd happened that Lisa did not expect. As if something higher power had heard her prayers, Lisa then heard a voice call out to her mind. Don't give up, Lisa. You've come so far already, the voice said. Lisa looked around searching for the sound of the voice, then noticed something around her had been seemingly stopped. Everyone was perfectly frozen in place, and Lisa appeared to be the only one moving around. Who said that? Lisa called out. Over here, a voice called out from beside her. Lisa looked over to the source of the voice was, and saw the source standing near the surgery table. To Lisa's surprise, it was Lincoln. He was all dressed entirely in white robe and looked completely healed. Lisa then glanced at the surgery table and also saw Lincoln laying there, still sedated, and there happened to appear to be no the two of them. However, as Lisa glanced over at Lincoln on the surgery table and then at Lincoln in the white robe, Horrifying realization of what happened had finally sank in, as Lisa nearly broke down from it. No, Lincoln, are you dead? Lisa stammered, now tears visible in her eyes. Dead? Not quite, Lincoln said, glancing back at himself at the surgery table. Though I'll admit, certainly have seen better days. Lincoln, I don't know what to do. The nanites are unstable, and they're only making the brain and the damage much worse, Lisa said, now breaking out in tears. You might as well be dead at this point. I've let everyone down. No, not yet, you haven't, Lincoln said, walking up towards Lisa and placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm only near death, and I'm only having what you call an out-of-body experience. What do I do, Lincoln? I didn't predict a scenario like this would happen. Even if I do something to establish the nanites, you'll die for sure, Lisa whimpered. You'll always find a way, Lisa. You always do, Lincoln said with a smile. Just dig deep in emotions aside, and answer to your problem will come to light. I don't understand, Lisa said. Just put in simple words. Your calm emotions and do not panic, and put them aside and straight. You'll figure it out, what to do, Lincoln replied. Now do what you need to do and make me proud. As Lisa watched as Lincoln began to hover back towards his body, then he glanced back at the CNI unit. Lincoln's words were filled with confidence, and she didn't know what she did, but she insisted. Lisa knew what to do. She quickly came out of her trance and resumed around her. Lisa, what do we do? Dr. Lloyd cried out. Lisa raised her head up with now a look of determination and hope. Lisa had come this far, and she wouldn't let Lincoln or anyone down. I know what to do, Lisa said, then glanced at Dr. Lloyd. We need to interface the ultrasound machine directly to the CNI unit's main sensor array. This will basically turn the transducer into a mobile commander transport that would instantly be able to communicate with every single nanite inside of Lincoln's brain. This will allow me to instantly send a restabilization to command to correct the nanite's tragedies and repair the brain damage. How do I do that? Dr. Lloyd asked in confusion. It's very simple, Lisa said, opening the back of the control panel and putting a long cable from inside it and tossed to Dr. Lloyd. Plug this into your auxiliary connection ports of the ultrasound machine. Then I'll link the CNI unit's main sensor array to it. You'll need to do it quickly, or Lincoln will die, as I estimate will be in 3 minutes. Dr. Lloyd quickly hooked the table into a square port next to the transducer ports, and Lisa began to interface the CNI unit with its ultrasound machine. Interfacing now complete. System offline with ultrasound unit, the CNI unit's voice replied. Alright, now I am tied down to the ultrasound machine, Lisa informed. Hold the transducer right in the center of Lincoln's head while I transfer the command. Dr. Lloyd nodded and moved the transducer right down to the top of Lincoln's head. Lisa then inputted the destabilization command, hit the execute command button. Nothing happened at first, but then about after 10 seconds, the alarm of the CNI unit stopped, and the nanites stopped going all wild and started moving towards a more orderly in order to stable the fashion. Nanite navigation scanners stabilized, analyzing or preparing damage, the CNI unit announced. Once the alarm had stopped and the main sensor array changed back to yellow, indicating that Lincoln's immune system had been established, his heartbeat was also established as the readouts of the CNI unit panels began to show positive increase of the brain tissue restoration. Doc, I think it's working. The brain damage of Lincoln's brain has been dropped to 96, 95, 94, and it's still dropping, Lisa said joyfully. The nanites were now in the full sync and repairing the damage to the areas of Lincoln's brain, much faster and then a rapid pace than before. The hemorrhage has also begun to go down less than a few minutes, and the nanites worked in the wonders at repairing the frontal lobe, the surgical cortex, and the broadcast area of Lincoln's brain as well. Lisa had glanced down at the status screen. It felt her heart leap with joy as she saw the levels of brain damage now gone to 41, then 35, and then 20. The nanites are working a lot faster and harder than Lisa could never expected, and this filled her joy with relief. God had answered her prayers, and she couldn't even be happier. The castrates, Clyde, and the rest of Lisa's family had heard every word spoken in the surgery room. It felt their hearts skipped a beat with all of their joy at amazing news. At one moment, all hope seemed lost, but Lisa had managed to pull another awesome miracle that no one ever saw it coming. Lisa is truly something else, Ronnie Ann said. I never thought that something like this would even be possible. She is truly a genius, Bobby remarked. Lisa continued to watch as the brain damage indicator level dropped to 15, 13, then 10%, and then eventually to 0. The main sensor array finally changed from yellow to green as the medical voice control panel spoke again. Brain restoration process complete. All damaged areas of the brain restored unto full health, the CNI unit announced. Dr. Lloyd moved the ultrasound transducer around Lincoln's head to make sure for any possible brain damage, but due to itself wasn't any, Lisa's invention had worked. "Lisa," Dr. Lloyd said with a smile, "there is no more visible brain damage anywhere in Lincoln. The nanites have fully regenerated the brain tissue." Lisa then glanced back at them and then at the observatory window. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a success regeneration of Lincoln's brain," she announced. At the moment she said that, everyone in the observatory room cheered, and even Dr. Lloyd and the surgeons cheered as well. Lisa had achieved the impossible, and she had successfully accomplished it, and possibly the most amazing surgical medical history, and she had also made her family proud. Lisa then jumped down from the stool and rushed out of the surgery room, where her family had rushed into the hall to see her. As soon as Lisa was up, Rita quickly grabbed her and hugged her tightly. "Lisa, you did it!" she cried, shedding tears of joy. Soon her whole family was hugging her, shedding tears of joy as well. "You made us proud, Lisa," Bobby said. As everyone embraced Lisa, she began herself shedding tears of joy. Lisa had saved her brother, but she had her sisters to thank for as well. They insisted in helping her build the CNI unit, which had surgery possible, so Lisa made a personal note to thank all of her sisters for that. "Sis, Lisa," Luan said and embraced Lisa, "thank you for saving Lincoln's life. I have you and the rest of our siblings to thank for as well. Your contribution for helping building the CNI unit make this all possible, and for that I'm truly grateful," Lisa replied, hugging Luan back. So everyone was hugging over each other until a minute before Dr. Lloyd came out of the surgery room. "Sorry to interrupt your celebration here, but I call and require Lisa's assistance," he informed the group. Well then, Lisa said, stepping back. "Duty calls." She then followed Doc back to the surgery room, knowing that she and all of her family would be seeing Lincoln back to his old self again very soon.